What is up, Las Vegas and friends? Guess what? We're at episode 50. Holy shit. Time has flown by. Jesus, man. I just want to thank all of you for listening to the show and jumping on this bandwagon, man. We've hit about 8,500 downloads and views across YouTube and the streaming platform. So it's amazing. And that's much better than I ever would have expected. So if you're listening to this, please make sure you're subscribed. And I'm looking at you if you're watching this on YouTube. Also hit the subscribe in the little corner so we can continue this moonshot going forward. And as well as episode 50, I have a good friend of mine. We go back to our college days.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's quite vocal, and she is a Dayclub and Nightclub model server for the last 3 years up until, COVID came around. And she's also a little bit of a progressive liberal activist on social media. So make sure that you guys have your headphones buckled in because this is going to be a fun conversation. So without further ado, Miss Angel Rasmussen.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I feel so honored. It's actually show 50 too. I feel like that's kind of like landmark-ish.
Landmark, specialty.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that I wanted to talk to somebody about nightlife, obviously, day life, living that, but also you're a very vocal person and you're very engaging, as we've seen through social media when it comes to politics and just being very open-minded and opinionated, which is very different from what you see how people cast that kind of movement. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And there's a lot of negativity around it too. Like, I think I probably drive a lot of people insane, honestly, on my social media. I think even too, sometimes people take me very seriously. Like, if you actually know me as a person, I'm very passionate in my beliefs. I'm very opinionated, but I'm really not an asshole. Like, so people get offended and think I'm like attacking them and their opinion, and it's really not it. I'm just here to kind of give you a different view than what their perspective is. But, it's for me, it's all in good fun. I think a lot of people get a little butthurt by the things I say and the things I post, but that's fine.
Yeah. Everything gets a little lost in the fray, so to speak. People get caught up in their own emotions, where I think where society's kind of progressed is that, like, you're not allowed to disagree with one another and be civil, which was okay, like, before the social media craze.
It's so true. And I think it's even too, we've gotten, especially with politics, we've gotten to a place where it's so polarized that now it's like people can't seem to have a civil conversation without getting hostile and aggressive and attacking one another, which is truly sad because we're never going to have any progress if we don't come together and learn how to work with one another and learn to listen to other people's opinions and perspectives. So it's kind of sad in a way. But I've kind of I'm not even gonna lie to you, I actually kind of deleted Facebook off of my phone a few weeks ago because I was like, I need to redirect my energy in other places than this. So
Facebook's a war zone, man.
It is a war zone, and especially for me because it's one of those things. Like if I don't know, it's fine. But if someone posts something, I'm like, I just can't let them get away with this post. I was like, I have to say something, and then that's how I get sucked in. So if I don't know, it won't bother me. It won't trigger me, I guess.
I support that. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Facebook either. I use the groups a little bit, but the feed itself, like I said, it's a war zone, and it's not as engaging as you'd want through some of the other social media platforms, and they all have. So they all have their wrongdoings and, the negative aspects of it.
That's so true. They all have their pros and cons. Yeah,
but
so true.
Facebook, they haven't really taken a stance when it comes to censoring political censorship. So
until like recently, a little bit they have. But it's even funny, that's like the new thing too on the right is they're like, they only censor things like on our side. And it's like, because your side's lying. Because that's a blatant lie.
Yeah, that gets into an interesting conversation because I know Trump, he's been trying to classify social media platforms as publishers rather than utilities that is free to the public. And I think he's kind of just a little bit upset that
Right.
Jack Dorsey's taken an active stance to tag his different quotes.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some truth in that, though, in a sense that if you're a social media platform and you're going to censor certain people, but not everybody,
Right.
then you are acting as somewhat of a publisher.
That's true.
So he wants to take away some.
Right.
He wants to take away some of their protections because of that. But it comes down to like what you believe in, whether it's freedom of speech, whether you're protecting other people.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is tough. You know, it's one of those things too where I hate the whole hypocrisy of that too, because I agree. If you can't censor one side and then not censor the other, you know? Or a lot of people think like, oh, because I'm a progressive, right? Or because I'm a Bernie bro, like I don't understand and resonate with a lot of the viewpoints that Republicans or conservatives have, and that's actually not true. Like at one point, I would have voted for Donald Trump. Like most people don't know this. In 2016, I hated either candidate. I was like, I don't want to vote for either. I feel like I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. Kind of where I feel like I'm at once again, unfortunately. But if I would have voted, I would have voted for Trump. And a lot of people don't know that. So to think that I don't understand, you know, other people's viewpoints or whatever, I'm like, I call Democrats out on their hypocrisies. And you know, if you say you stand for one thing and then you're going to track back when your side does it, like, I don't respect that, you know, have integrity. So you can't have one standard for one side and then not hold the other side to that same standard. But it's a lot of what we see nowadays going on in the world.
It is truth. And it's something that you see within the left is that, which I'm curious what resonates with you so much about socialism or Bernie as a leader.
Right.
But the left is kind of severed into two different camps. It's almost like an internal civil war, which is almost terrifying in a sense, because you can't really get anything done because all they do is just hate on each other, and it pushes a lot of people who were on the left kind of towards the center. And that's kind of where I've become. But I consider myself more of like a political observer because I don't really know where I stand in. I don't even know if I want to be in any of the camps, you know?
Yeah. You know, and I even understand that too. It's funny. Like I put myself in the progressive camp, but I almost don't even like putting myself in the Democratic camp because like I said, how we said we're not the same. There's a lot of things into that camp that I'm like, I don't agree with that. So I don't even like associating myself with that. I'm like, how are you going to say you support feminism and the Me Too movement, and then when something like a major sexual assault accusation comes up against your own candidate, you're going to try and brush it under the rug and act like nothing happens? You're going to take #MeToo out of your bios? Like, I have no respect for that. You know, if you stand for something, you stand for something, regardless of if it's going to benefit your side of the aisle or not. So, yeah, there's a lot of, you know.
So what attracted you towards Bernie Sanders? Let's go back to the beginning. So you'd say 2016 you didn't know. You became a Bernie bro, quote unquote.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting. I mean, I heard of Bernie a little bit, obviously, in 2016, but I wasn't paying attention really to politics as much. I just graduated college. You know, when I was in college, I was really focused on myself and Greek life and, you know, partying.
The good Greek life days.
You know, I was really distracted with like my stuff. So I didn't really start to really pay attention to politics until like really deeply until like maybe 2018. So it's still pretty fresh. But the only thing I heard about Bernie in 2016 was, he wants to eliminate student debt. And I was like, well, I'm not opposed to that. As I'm like racking up all these, I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound like a bad idea to me, but that's my very biased opinion. So that was the first thing I think I'd ever heard of Bernie. As far as liking Bernie, you know, my favorite thing about him, and I tell this to everybody, is regardless of whether you agree with him ideology-wise or not, in politics, you have so many flip-floppers, right, where once the public or once something is popular, now they're suddenly on board with it and act like, oh yeah, like gay rights, oh yeah, you know, transgender, like, oh, all these different things, but they didn't support it when it came down to voting for it, you know, back in the day. They just kind of say what they need to say to get elected. And then once they get elected, we all know half the time they don't follow through. So my favorite thing about Bernie, and it goes back to like integrity, is he's been saying the same things since the beginning. Like, he got arrested fighting for civil rights, like marching with people. So his message has stayed the same, and he was before his time in a lot of his messages. And it's interesting because now the things he's been touting since way back when he first got into politics are now finally popular with the younger generation, the millennials, the Zoomers. But he stayed consistent. It's like he you know what I mean? It grew into what he always believed in. And I think that's why I truly genuinely respect him. I believe if he got into office, he would actually follow through and doing the things that he says he's going to do.
He is a definition of a leader, somebody that you can believe in. The consistency is key, and that's something that Joe Rogan had pointed out when he had him on his show.
Yeah, I loved that episode.
Yeah, it was good. Just like the power of having, I think he talked on Joe Rogan's show for about an hour.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But I saw a lot of even conservatives identify with Bernie. Like, all right, he's not actually the crazy old man who's just wailing around the term socialism.
The media tells you.
Yeah, it's what the media.
He's a communist. Yeah. I'm like, what? Do you even know what a communist is? Mm-hmm. I've gotten good at, like, people are like, oh, you're a socialist and you like communism. I'm like, can you please define those two terms for me and like what they mean to you? And then they don't even know. They don't even know what those two things mean. And I'm like, okay, so you're like, saying these things, you don't even understand what you're talking about. So I've gotten good at now just turning the questions around on other people before I even engage with them. I'm like, do you even know what you're talking about? Or are you just saying what Fox News told you to say?
It's like, true. Yeah. It's the mainstream media has become more of entertainment than it is actual politics.
Yeah. And I think people forget that, they listen to CNN and they listen to Fox News and they just like take all of that in as fact and not understanding like, they're just another business trying to make money. So they actually, I'm like, even CNN, they don't hate Trump. They love Trump. Trump gives so much entertainment.
So much money, yeah.
Yeah, he says so many outlandish, crazy things. He's attention grabbing. They love it. They love him. So, but they put it on the narrative of, oh my God, look at how horrible he is.
Yeah, he's Hitler. He's the next Hitler.
Exactly. It's the same, all these extremes. Bernie's a communist and Trump is Hitler. So. Yeah, fine.
Bernie actually, I was kind of like you, 2016. I graduated college in 2015. I don't even remember anything about the Obama administration. I was just like so in tune with college and Greek life and everything. Yep. But Bernie kind of opened my eyes that there could be something different to politics than just like, the typical right-left, but it was a little bit, he was identified as an independent for so long, but he had to go under the Democrat ticket to run.
Exactly.
But his socialism is more of a democratic socialism than that. And so he's not taking those ideals of Marxism. I mean, he'll take some of them, but he wanted to replicate it into the modern day society.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's never been done before, it's something that's awesome to see, but that's also a little terrifying because it's like, I don't know if it'll work or not, but at some point it's like, would we try something new?
Yeah, well, it is actually interesting because a lot of the things actually that Bernie likes and supports have been done in like Nordic countries like Denmark, like Norway, Germany, the UK, because a lot of the things are like, oh, he's a socialist. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by socialism? Because he's not saying the government takes over all private businesses and now runs the means of production. That's not what Bernie means by socialism. Bernie means by socialism is by having more robust systems in place that take care of the majority of American citizens. So essentially think of things like, okay, Social Security, okay, Medicare. Instead of cutting these things, it's more expanding these things and putting more money into them versus, blowing up like kids in the Middle East. And
so he's a big he's a big believer in social safety nets.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think because of him and even more so now with Andrew Yang and UBI, that's caught a lot of attention, even people from the right as well, is that we need Bernie wanted to go for all the social safety nets. Right. I think we need at least one, whether it's universal health care or a UBI that it can get you by with the bills, and then you kind of pick and choose. That seems to be a little bit more in tune with the capitalist model.
Exactly. Well, what's actually interesting is like I'm a Bernie bro. I love Bernie, but if I thought Andrew Yang actually had a shot at winning, I would have backed Andrew Yang over Bernie. I actually loved Andrew Yang. Again, too, I really do care. I care a lot about character, actually, and like who I vote for. And you can just genuinely tell Andrew Yang is like a good person and he just wants what's best for, American citizens. And yeah, a lot of what Andrew Yang was touting and saying really resonated with me as well. I just knew I had a better shot at Bernie winning than at Andrew Yang winning. So
yeah, he had that full grassroots movement that was still going strong and opened a lot of millennials' eyes and Zoomers too, even though they couldn't vote at the time. Like I said, I didn't vote. I voted for Bernie in both Democratic primaries.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Yeah, I supported him.
I appreciate you.
I supported him. Now I'm nonpartisan, just because I don't like what either party's doing, and I've kind of backed out of both of those, which is it's something we'll touch into.
Yeah, I feel it. I totally understand.
but as far as Bernie, also I'm a big character person. I think when you have to identify a leader, you have to look into, all right, obviously their policies, which is something that they're doing, and then also their character. Yeah. Is it somebody that you can trust? Is it somebody who encourages motivation, encourages innovation, different things like that? That's not just a flat out policy, because at the end of the day, we're all human social characters, and words move us much more than people expect, right? Like when we grew up off the phrase "sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." That was the rough and tough old motto. Yep. Now we've learned that
not true.
So not true, yeah. In so many different facets and outlets.
Which, of course, my background is in psych, so I completely understand and resonate with that. They even, what was this one book I read? They even used the phrasing. They're like, words are like the black magic that we have to use against one another, and you can either use it for good or you can use it for bad. Yeah,
that's kind of Trump's model with persuasion. Are you familiar with who Scott Adams is?
I don't know, maybe.
He wrote Dilbert. He's like a published author of many books, but most famously for Dilbert. He actually wrote a book on Donald Trump called Win Bigly. And it was something that I read 2 years ago and really just like turned my perception of what Trump is. Because for the first 2 years, I was kind of taking him as literally as for what he says. Yeah. But he emphasized in the book that Trump is using different forms of persuasion to get what he wants, as far as hijacking the news cycle and using his comedic background for political satire, and it just drives people off the walls, which therefore gets exacerbated into CNN, just like we were speaking.
Yeah, they play right into it. It's so funny. I mean, I'll give Trump credit where it's due. He's great at what he does. There's no denying that. You went from being a reality TV star to the president of the United States. That deserves some credit. People talk about if Andrew Yang was underqualified. I'm like, oh, we're worried about that with who's in office? That's really the question we're asking right now? So yeah, but you gotta give credit where credit's due.
But it comes back to that leadership quality, and that's kind of the debate now. It's are you more in favor of the economy and deregulation? And then this also goes along with a character who is not taken seriously by many of the world governments, although he did broker peace between the Middle East. So I'm not really sure what the connection is there, but a lot of the other UN countries aren't.
Have to wonder.
Yeah, aren't big fans. The behind the scenes negotiations are interesting.
Our allies are not a fan.
Yeah,
at all.
At all. And then you could go with someone more to the left or in its own class, as far as Bernie with democratic socialism, and what you see is what you get. Been so consistent. I don't see a reason why he would just all of a sudden flip the switch. And he's also inspired some other leaders like AOC too.
Yeah, I love her.
I like her too. I don't necessarily agree with all of her policies, but it comes to the motivation and energy,
the passion. Yeah, I kind of refer to her. I'm like, that's my spirit animal. I love her. I really do. She's fiery.
She's cool, and I like too that she's starting to bring technology and innovation into the political space. Right. When you look at oh my God, I just cringe every time I watch the antitrust lawsuit against Facebook and Google and all those, and more specifically the Facebook Cambridge Analytica, where the senators are trying to grill Mark Zuckerberg and they don't know
so
anything.
painful to
They don't know
watch.
anything
It's
about
so
technology, anything.
Zoomers look at that and are like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah,
I know it's so bad.
It's so bad. So to be able to like bring these new ideas into the space, it's very refreshing.
Yeah.
And she pisses people off, which is kind of funny because she pisses the
Just
right
like
off.
me.
Yeah. Hey,
You make people really mad.
she literally does what Trump does, just comes in, but it's just from a different position.
It is. Yeah. She's like, a Ben Shapiro type person. Like, you either love him or you really don't like him. Which is interesting because I've loved him at one point. So that's what I was saying. I've identified with a lot of those viewpoints at one point, and then I've changed my mind.
Exactly. Yeah. Ben Shapiro is somebody that I've been looking into too, and also tying this all together about Bernie Sanders getting me into politics. He opened my eyes to that you don't have to just identify with whatever you naturally grew up with. I grew up on the east side of Vegas. It's like a low economic area.
Right.
Both my parents are Democrats. I don't know if they understand why they're Democrats, maybe because their parents were Democrats. And so it kind of just plays on and on and on and on.
It's just what you've been hearing since you were a little kid. So you just take that in as truth because when you're a child, that's what you do. You're a little sponge.
Yeah.
Taking everything as fact, even if it's just opinion.
So I started questioning just different things in politics of why. And this is also kind of accelerated with my obsession of Bitcoin and financial systems, which I'll tie into politics later.
Yeah.
But then I tried looking up a lot of like popular left public figures to like look into. And then I realized that there aren't any. There's not really. The left is really like a group think. And then I started watching people like Ben Shapiro and, even some more far right ones like Candace Owens and Dennis Prager and like trying to like figure out like why these people are so popular. Then you go more into the center and the left of like Sam Harris and the Weinstein Bros and Joe Rogan and all these different people.
Yep.
But I noticed the majority of the public figures are on the right and there isn't that many popular figures on the left that I could find. And I actually asked multiple people that are like progressives and liberals for people to look into, and they really couldn't come up with any answers.
Right. They were like Bernie and AOC.
Yeah, and I'm like, can I get somebody who's not a politician? Like just some commentary on it or some support.
Are you telling me that I should go and be this person?
You could. Hey,
you telling me I should start my podcast on this?
Hey, I told you we're going to inspire multiple things from this podcast.
Oh, we'll see.
But I noticed that the left, it's not individual public figures, it's more organizations.
Right. Or there's like, so there's like the Young Turks, but again, too, that's not really like a person. That's more like a platform. But yeah, you're kind of right. There isn't anybody that's.
It's interesting. It's because now they've just like identified into groupthink, and there isn't these quote unquote free thinkers for the party, which I think is not a good thing. I think you need to have people out there that are in the public face. And granted, there probably are some, so don't take that completely out of context. But on the popular grand stage, there's 10 times as many conservative public figures than there are from the left. So then I started diving into, Ben Shapiro and all these other figures, and kind of found myself kind of pushing to the right, and I was like, wait, am I conservative now? I was like, I don't really know, like I definitely support capitalism.
Yeah,
I like that there's innovation and it's kind of turned into more of like a corporate socialism now, which is what we saw happen with the bailouts.
See, that's my problem with it though. That's my issue. If you're like, oh, you hate capitalism, and I'm like, no, I hate that it's labeled socialism and bad, and you should pull yourself up by the bootstraps if you're an individual. But if you're a corporation, which, okay, you support free markets. Okay, free markets is the government isn't bailing you out. You understand that starting a business is a risk. So if your business goes under due to whatever it might be, that's the risk you assumed from starting a business. But the other side of that is the profits that you make from starting that business. Yeah. So why are we bailing you out when you're profiting billions, trillions of dollars? We're not bailing out the American people who just wanted to go and get an education. So now they're drowning under student debt for the rest of their lives because they wanted to be a nurse or a doctor or a therapist. Like what? We tell people to go to school. We encourage that. We don't even encourage entrepreneurism in our country. And then we screw people for it. It's just interesting to me.
Yeah, it's so bad that you see this just emphasized in 2008 and then even more drastically now.
Yeah.
Where and also people don't understand what bankruptcy means. Like when a company goes into bankruptcy, the company doesn't go away. It just basically, it goes into a proceeding where people have the opportunity, different owners, to come in and buy it and rebuild it out, you know? So a lot of people were claiming like, we can't let Boeing go bankrupt because they have all of these national security secrets. But in reality, it wouldn't go away. It would just take over new ownership and probably be ran much better than these money draining owners that do today and issue 90% stock buybacks over the course of the year and have no, reserves in their bank. And so it turned into corporate socialism where they know, Wall Street and a lot of the owners know that they can just do this because eventually the government is going to come in and bail them out.
They've gotten away with it time and time again. Why would they think they can't continue to get away with it? It's like if you don't discipline your child, or like I throw a temper tantrum and I get what I want. And I'm going to keep throwing temper tantrums because I get what I want. So here we are.
Yeah, I think, and that's tied directly to allowing money to be acted upon as free speech, which I think is probably, I've said this before, I think it's one of the worst things that's ever happened to this country.
It is. I think, and that's even why like people understand, like my favorite things about Bernie is like overturning Citizens United, and like money isn't free speech, and it's not okay that like if you have more money, you can buy politicians and you can persuade people to get what you want. Like that's not what democracy is. That's what oligarchy is.
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
That's literally where we're heading. Like money is power. So much power being in the hands of a few people should terrify you. And then you should even be more terrified with the way our campaign system is, where politicians care about being reelected, right? Because if they're not elected, they don't get to do anything. So who are they catering now to? The rich people that can give them more money so that they can put that into their campaign, or the small people like me and you that are going to give them $5, $10, maybe a few $100s? Like, come on.
Yeah, that was a crazy revolution that Bernie had, where he was literally raising millions and millions of dollars on, I think it was like a $17 or $30 max donation.
Yeah, I never donated to a candidate until Bernie.
Yeah.
And it's funny, even my grandparents are like, stop donating money. I was like, and of course, it's back when I'm a bottle girl. I'm like, it's fine. I was like, it's okay. It's not that much money.
Yeah, so true. So. Well, once you feel that passion, it's hard to get away
I was like,
from
I feel like I have to. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I want to make a difference. I was like canvassing, knocking on doors, talking to strangers, telling them to vote for Bernie Sanders. Like if you'd ever told me I was going to do that for somebody, I'd be like, nah, I don't think so.
Were you doing that while you were working over at Drais?
Yeah, so I was doing that, like all this winter. So before, because we caucused, it was like the 22nd of February. So yeah, like a few months, like December, January, February, going into that, I was knocking on doors, talking to people about why they should vote for Bernie Sanders. It's quite an experience.
That's what I find really fascinating about your story is that, you're a Bernie Sanders fan, but you're also working in the nightclubs where, predominantly you don't see people who are making, a decent living supporting somebody who could potentially tax them more. Right. And take away some of their money. So it shows more into your personal values of what you care about over than money, because something I've seen happening pretty recently is a lot of my friends that are in the industry have become a little bit more vocal to supporting Trump, which, everyone's entitled to their opinions.
Yeah, everyone is. But
it shows that it's more catered towards a preservation of wealth than it is towards like assisting social issues in society. So that's why I find it interesting, the position that you're in.
It's interesting though. I can't even blame them, because even in America, we're kind of taught this like rugged individualistic mindset of like, you focus on you and you do what you got to do to get to the top, and, it's not community thought. It's not, thinking about the whole. You're told to be selfish. You're told to think about yourself. Ironically enough, the bad part is that what you don't realize is that when you help everybody, you do help yourself. So, But a lot of people, that's getting into a whole nother level. So
it's like the quote, "You're only as strong as your weakest link."
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we have all these homeless people that we're just like leaving for dead, right? I'm like, they could be workers. Like they could literally contribute to our economy. And instead, now they're this issue for us. They don't need to be an issue if we just literally invest more into mental health and low income housing and X, Y, and Z. Like that'll benefit all of us in the long run. But, people don't, if it's not that quick, immediate buck, it's
that dopamine rush of making money and making profits. It is nice, especially working on the strip. When you get that tip, you're like, oh, it's fucking on.
Yeah.
It's on.
Yeah. Trust me. I mean,
instant gratification.
The industry, and I think obviously for you, like me and you both went to college. So the industry for us, I think, is like a short-term thing. It's like, oh, we're young, it's a fun job. It's like quick, easy money. Gives me a lot of freedom to travel and to do these things that I want to do while I'm young before I get into my career and that 9-to-5 lifestyle. But for me, I could never just imagine being a bottle server or a cocktail server my whole entire life. I have too many like passions and like things that I feel like a duty that I owe, like a service that I need to provide to like leave the world a better place than I found it. And I don't think getting people drunk on weekends that's that outlet. But I get why it's so hard because I'm about to get hired at this job to it's called Safe Nest. It's like a domestic violence shelter here in Las Vegas. So I'm about to finally start working like in my field, in the psych field, and like applying to grad school. And I'm looking at what my hourly is and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what I'm going to make in a day is what I could make in an hour or two. It's just so mind blowing.
That's why people get stuck in the industry.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And stuck is, it may be a bad terminology because some people, they work in it for a few years and they embrace it. They embrace the money because it is real money for a real job. But it's so easy to become consumed by it and to get caught in the cycle. And, working nights is not easy on your body. Not easy at all.
No, I don't know how people do that long term either. Because even my grandmother, she was always a third shifter. She was always a graveyard person. And it messes with your sleep system so much to the point where she's been retired now for like almost maybe a decade. I mean, like 5-7 years. And she still can't go to bed and get a full night's sleep. Like it's totally messed with her system of doing 20 years of graveyard where her sleep schedule will never be the same. We're just not meant to do that as humans.
It's not up until this pandemic. I couldn't tell you the last time that I slept 8 hours straight. Uninterrupted sleep.
Right.
That's like that's like my new drug now. Now I can sleep 8 hours and I wake up just feeling amazing.
Yeah. So people don't even understand too. It's so interesting. Like I'm very into psych. I'm very into like holistic health. And people underestimate how important sleep is. Like if you care about being healthy, that's just as important as working out. If you're not getting 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep, that messes with your system. Like you repair most of your own created HGH in your sleep. So that's literally what helps and repairs and grows your body. If you don't have that and you're not getting your sleep, like of course you're depleted, you're tired, you're anxious. So people underestimate so many of these small little things that benefit your life.
The depression that comes with it in the wintertime, you only see the sun for maybe 2-3 hours.
It's so horrible.
And it's like such a known thing in the industry too. You're like, oh, depression season's coming, and it's not cool. Even,
It is so depressing. Maybe that's a relief this year. We don't get to be depressed this winter.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying everything in my power not to go back. Depending on what the money situation and everything is.
Yeah.
I've loved the job. The job's easy. The people there are pretty cool. You get to work around like supermodels all day. Most of the people are very cool. You
get to work around beautiful people.
Yeah.
You get to meet famous people. There are worse jobs. Yeah. You get to literally party without the drinking part for your job. That's what you do.
I'm like an overpaid babysitter.
It's so true.
It's literally what it is.
The babysitter that feeds everyone shots and gets them drunk. Yeah. Waves around some like light sticks.
Yeah. It's such a unique job, and a lot of times it goes underappreciated for a long time. There'd be often times where I'd be at Omnia and I'd just be standing there staring at the chandelier, and I'm just like, how is this a real job? Like this doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem real to me.
Yeah. You know, or at least, you know, you have that perspective, and like me and you we're very grateful, because I think to a lot of people in the industry took it for granted. And you know, it's so funny, you'd like hear all the time like, oh well, I'm not gonna work tonight, like I'm only gonna make $400. And you're like, if you think about it, some people work a week to make $400, and you're gonna make it in 8 hours, and you're complaining. So it really is all about perspective. But I think so many people in our industry got so used to that money and so spoiled. And I think this is kind of like a reality check. Yeah. It's like, hey, welcome to the real world. Yeah.
They always said, what happens when you take an industry girl out of the industry? How do they react to society? Right. Same goes for bartenders and bussers and everything as well. But it's always a running joke. And now you've seen a lot of people kind of dive down to the real estate agent mission, which is pretty interesting. A lot of people have gone into content creation. That's something that I've done, something that other people have. But then there's other people that have just gone silent for a while, and you're like, man, I hope that person's okay.
That person fall into a deep depression, and I hope they're doing all right. Someone should probably check on them.
And also too, just to now's situation, it's like you get used to making a certain amount of money, so then your living style comes to that. You know, you could take out a higher mortgage. You have like a nice car. You have a bunch of different accessories that you're paying on, and I know some people that have had like between $4,000 to $6,000 monthly bills, you know, between everything. And then once you take that away, and now you're living on $400 a week, and
you're like,
you know,
how?
Yeah, you're like, how? And you see some people starting to sell what they need to make a living. And you know, you could get by when we were getting the 600 unemployment bonus, and now people are starting to feel the effects of that. Yeah,
that was a game changer. I won't even lie to you that extra $600 a week definitely saved me. Yeah.
Trump came in, and for Nevada, we're going to get $1,800. It was 6 weeks of $300.
Okay.
But it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks from what I read.
Okay.
So, you know, that'll help. And then I've stayed really focused on the stimulus negotiation, or the package negotiations. Have you been following that at all?
You know what? I was following the first ones like crazy, because like I said, I was like, okay. Because that was in the panic mode, right? Where everyone's like, wait, I don't have jobs. Wait, I have all these bills. Wait, how am I going to do this? So that was like the pure like panic mode. Now I've kind of gotten to this place where with this stimulus, I'm like, okay, I'm just focusing on like cutting down my expenses, scaling back on like my living style. And really just, I've been focusing on I'm like, okay, what do I want to do now? I'm like, okay, now it's time to realign myself with my purpose. Now it's time to sign up for the GRE. Now it's time to look into applying for grad school and getting a job in my field. So that's where I've actually been focusing my attention these last few weeks, because I'm like, okay, we got to do something here.
That's
I'm not just going to sit around and wait and hope for my industry jobs to come back, because first of all, who knows what they're going to be like when they come back? And then beyond that, who knows when things are going to be normal? And even so, like my job, like Drais laid all of us off on Memorial Day weekend. I'm pretty sure Hakkasan laid all of you guys off too.
Yeah, we're active layoff is what it is. So we're union employees. So the union just reached a deal that we're protected to get our job back by like, it was 18 months from the layoff. But that's if
something happens in those 18 months.
Yeah, if something happens, or if they get sold off, then it's not guaranteed anymore.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And hasn't them kind of been in the talks of like Hakkasan?
Vital Vegas just tweeted, I think this was yesterday, that Hakkasan's had 3 offers already for buyouts, and they turned it down every time. And they just laid off their entire corporate office yesterday. So you can tell that something's coming in there. Something's coming in there. I saw that writing on the wall immediately. That's why I was like, I'm hopping on this immediately, at least to be entertained. And you know, like something with podcasting, you don't get paid in the beginning. Of course, but it's exponential towards the end.
Of course, you gotta put in the time and the work for the audience, and then it's supposed to pay off.
It's fun, and then I get to talk to awesome people like you.
Yeah. Like this doesn't seem like the worst job. I'm like, maybe I should have started mine. What am I up to?
Content creations. It's interesting because I was actually like, I used to always make fun of content creators as we were talking about this before we started. I didn't even watch YouTube until this, and I always made fun and called YouTube a sellout. Now I have a YouTube channel, and I'm like, subscribe, please. Subscriptions for the poor. But I follow a bunch of comedians. Stand-up comedy is like one of my favorite things to watch, and they always talk about how like they go on for an hour and they perform, and then it's like, well, what do I do with the rest of my day? And it's like, well, that is your job. That's all you got to do. And
that sounds great, though.
Yeah. So a lot of them have this like angst of guilt that's built up because they feel like they're not giving anything really to society. It's only an hour of your day, whereas like we've been indoctrinated to have the 40-hour work week, which
but that's outdated.
It is, yeah. And
that's ridiculous.
I forget what country is it that's moved over to the 32 hour.
I don't know, but again, too, this is why, and that's this is my whole like, oh, I love Bernie Sanders. I'm like, this goes back to like those Nordic like countries like Norway and Finland, because they're very progressive. Like, you think we're progressive? I'm like, all the things Bernie Sanders talks about, like universal healthcare, healthcare, giving everyone college tuition, all these things. All these other countries already do these things. So it's the same thing over there. Now they're even beyond that, where they're like, yeah, we realize like a 4-day work week is probably better for people's mental health, and it gives them, more time to spend with their family and do all these other activities that are important to them. And I'm like, you guys get it.
They understand.
Yeah. I'm like,
and there's such an emphasis now on mental health with everyone being locked down for quarantine. And that's a different story of, freedom of speech and whatever you want. But I think we've become to learn that we're much more adapt to being social creatures than what we think we are, because a lot of people now 6 months into this are kind of just giving up on the whole mask ideal and everything like that. And it's funny, I was just having this conversation the other day that I was like, now people are like, okay, I'll take the risk to go out. I need to see people. I need to like go do something. I need to be sane. I was like, okay, we kind of understand how cavemen used to live back in like the prehistoric era, where they're like, he's like, Johnny, there's a fucking dinosaur out there that could eat you. And he's like, I've been in this cave for a year. I can't do this anymore.
I'll risk the dinosaur. It's fine.
Yeah, I can't do it anymore, man.
Yeah, just look at this wall. It's so true. And even too, like, isn't it interesting how we adapt and we get used to things? Because at the beginning of this, everyone's in full panic mode. Like, I'm not leaving my house to go to the grocery store. Like, I'm not seeing a single soul. And now we're like, especially us younger, we're like, if we get it, we get it. It's fine. Like, we'll live.
Yeah, it's the percentage is still very low. And, there's different numbers that have come out. And with I think there was like the 6% of people actually die from coronavirus. Although I think that is taken a little bit out of context, because I was talking to a bunch of nurses, and they say a lot of the people actually die from pneumonia. So it actually is classified as pneumonia because it turns into that at the end. And that's actually what you die from, and not coronavirus itself.
That's interesting.
So,
well, and here's the thing too, like, so of course this even like, it's funny. It's interesting how so many things do like tie back into politics, but another issue too with our like for-profit healthcare system is this whole, they're going to say people are dying of coronavirus. We just passed all these stimulus packages from the government for coronavirus. If they tell you more people are dying of coronavirus, they're going to get more funding for their hospital. So what benefits them? Telling them they died from pneumonia or telling them they died from corona? We're going to go with corona because it's going to give us more money.
Yeah, we're going to leverage that on top of anything.
Of course. Just follow the money always.
And that's exactly, we're just tying it right back to the second stimulus package. I've been following it very closely, because now that coronavirus is a heavy politicized, health crisis.
Yeah.
I find it interesting now of how the negotiations first started, right? The Dems proposed a $3.4 trillion. The Republicans said they wanted $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And I felt like the Democrats had the upper hand in the beginning. It was like there was still a lot of craziness going on, a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And that was still when the $600 the bonus was still going on. And then Pelosi came down to about half, and now the Republicans recently, they proposed a $300 billion one. So now the Republicans keep going down farther and farther as the Dems come down, and they're just like, the main thing is that the Dems want to bail out the states, because I think that's fair. I mean, you bailed out fucking everyone and their mom, as far as the corporations and the the fraudulent PPP program, whereas like churches were getting money, which is illegal.
Yep.
You know, that's illegal. And financial institutions were getting bonuses. And there was even some corporations that were giving money back. They're like, I don't deserve this. This is not right.
It's ridiculous.
This is not.
And meanwhile, like they gave Americans like this teeniest tiny piece. And it's so interesting. And like, it's just crazy how much like the media controls people, because then all the Republicans are like, an extra $600 a week. I'm like, look at what all these other people are getting.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is nothing.
It's
like
insane.
This is pennies. Like,
and now it seems like Andrew Yang's like a prophet, because he saw this coming before even coronavirus.
Give people money.
Yeah, and now you see conservatives hopping on it, and so the recent nonpartisan bill that's proposed right now is a $1.5 trillion one. I think this was proposed by a group, like a political action committee.
Okay.
And they came to the agreement of, well, this still has to get passed, but what's on the table right now, it's like $450 per week for 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then the next 8 weeks is $600, up to $600, scaling on the wages that you had lost.
Okay.
And both parties are for certain that they want unemployment bonus, but the amount's different. So it just shows that like we need these underlying social safety nets, or else the economy is going to fucking go to shit. And then the big thing is how much money goes to the states, as far as which is interesting, because here I'm going to ask you this question. Do you think Trump's plan to allow the states to regulate the coronavirus within themselves was the right move or not?
I think in times of chaos and kind of disaster like we had with Corona, we needed federal leadership. Like, I feel like even if, even if he did still leave it to the states, we still needed a singular message and sounding board and voice. And we didn't have that. You know what I mean? But I think that was all because he didn't take it seriously to begin with. Like, I do follow the news actively, and I was literally watching Jared Kushner say it's disgusting that the Democrats are coming up with this virus just to try and hurt the president's economy. Yeah. And this was before everything shut down. This was before anyone was taking it seriously. And Trump's like, it'll go away on one, like, it'll get warmer outside and it'll go away. And he just was acting like it wasn't real. And then I think it was just a deflection of, he doesn't like to take responsibility for when anything goes wrong. When everything goes right, he's the sole purpose and cause of it. When something goes wrong, he has no responsibility in the matter. So to me, him letting the states take control was just him being able to deflect and be like, see, this isn't my responsibility. I told the states that they can do it. So if they messed up, that's on them.
It's true.
That's how I view that whole handling and boggling of this situation.
Yeah. It's an interesting proposition, because the way that he handled it, where you let the states deal within their own state, I think it is the right move at the end of the day, because that goes with the Constitution. But I do think also that a unifying message of saying like, hey, we're in this together was needed, because at the end of the day, back to, we are social creatures, and we need those words of wisdom.
Right.
And so now that he let the states manage their coronavirus dealings. Yeah. What had happened was the states, the liberal states, they ended up closing everything down. Obviously, the economy is going to get ravaged because of this. Of all of the Republican states said, nah, fuck that, we're staying open, and then later closed down months after. Yeah. So the Democratic states are facing much tougher economic crisis. Yeah. And so now the Republicans are kind of holding that over the Democratic states' heads in this package. And they're saying like, I don't want to fund your poorly run state because that was your decision. Trump gave you the opportunity to make the decision at the end of the day. And
which is interesting though, because we can look at who brings more in economically, and actually we kind of subsidize the red states for the most part. Like, you look at California's economy and they make up a good portion of the economy. Same with New York. Yeah. So it's like interesting, like, okay, we're poorly run. You're not going to fund us. We literally have been subsidizing you, Kentucky, McConnell for years. So without us, you would already be bankrupt. So I don't know what you're trying to pull right now, but it's interesting.
So that's the political space. It's all public opinion and how it's viewed.
Exactly.
So,
it's like, okay, now you're looking at that one piece, but let's look at this other piece. And you're like, I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah, because you just listened to what the media told you or what McConnell told you or Trump told you. So
it's all about the redirection. And so now with the negotiations, that's kind of like the standstill that they're having. And now I'm seeing that this bill might get passed. It might not until after the elections.
Yeah. Well, didn't Trump sign like an executive order saying like, hey, we're going to do an extra $400 a week for UBI and we're going to do payroll, tax cuts, whatever.
Yeah, he wants to cut Social Security.
Yeah, of course he does.
Yeah, government, that's cutting government spending. That's the platform that he ran on. But at the end of the day...
Here's my thing. Like, you could cut government spending, but you're cutting government spending in the wrong spot. Yeah. You're, again, cutting government spending to benefit corporations and not to benefit people. That's my problem.
Yeah.
We don't need to benefit corporations. Corporations are fine.
That's one of the strongest social safety nets that we have, which I know people, I don't know the underlying, just like the workings of Social Security. I hear a lot of people say it's a Ponzi scheme, which I don't really know what's compromised of it on the inside. Mm-hmm. But with his Donald Trump's signature where he signed in, it's like, all right, I'm going to come in and save you guys, and I'm going to get you guys that $300 or $400. $300 is provided by the state. 100 is
opposite. So I think
opposite. Yeah, 300
and then the extra 100 be funded by the states, but most of the states don't have that extra 100 because they're bankrupt.
Yeah, and you know who that is? Those all the Democratic states.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's again too. Like this is, you know what? Even if I don't care, like what side of the aisle you sit on, I don't care if you're a conservative, a Democrat, independent, nonpartisan, whatever. My biggest issue, I think, with Donald Trump is I don't view him as a good leader. He's not a leader. He's divisive. He's so divisive. He's so toxic in the words he says and the way he attacks people and speaks to people. And especially in this economy and in this, in this space we're in right now, we don't need someone like that. Like, we're so divided. We're so at ends with one another that like family members aren't talking to one another. Friends aren't talking to one another. We don't need someone that just continues that. We need someone that cares about, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a Democratic state, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican state. Like, we're the United States of America. We're United States of America, not this screw you only, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just hate all of that. It's just not what we need right now in this moment.
What's your opinion of Joe Biden as a candidate?
Yeah. It's one of those things. I didn't vote in 2016 because I didn't want to vote for the lesser of two evils. And now I feel like I'm going to like plug my nose on election day and vote for the lesser of two evils, and not because I'm enthusiastic about it, but because, like I said before, at least Biden isn't toxic like Trump, So.
But he can't. Obviously, his cognition and cognitive ability is decreasing at an alarming rate.
Yeah, you also don't understand. So this is what I tell people. I'm like, okay, so in my head, I'm like, what's worse? Early onset dementia or like a narcissistic sociopath in office? I'm like, I'm going to have to say declining cognitive ability. And I'm going to say that because the people that Biden is going to surround himself with, I trust more, and he'll have more my values and ideological standpoints than who Trump is surrounding himself with. Because you can even see in his administration, it's hire, fire, hire, fire, hire, fire. Like, Trump needs yes men. Like, if you're not agreeing with what he's saying or like stroking his ego and agreeing with everything he says and does, like, you're done. You're out the door. That's terrifying to me. I don't want a bunch of like henchmen around you that are just going to tell you what you want to hear. I want actually intellectual individuals with their own thought processes and their own ideas that come in and give you their viewpoint. So to me, I'd say this to everyone, like, I'm not even voting for Biden. I'm literally voting for his cabinet. Yeah. I'm voting for who he'd be replacing on Supreme Court. I'm voting for those things. I'm not even really voting for him.
Yeah, it's such it's such a topsy-turvy campaign because you even see now too that in a lot of the marketing for Biden's campaign, it's more so for Kamala Harris. Like they're almost like ensuring like this is your president, not Joe Biden. Like this is
they're like,
the woman.
see, this is what'll happen if because you might die.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So this is who you'll have. Yeah.
I think he's very aware of that too. Like I could see when Joe Biden speaks that yes, he is forgetting. Yes, he is fragile, but the good intention seems there. And that I know as you get older too, you kind of become a little bit more within your means as far as your emotions. Mm-hmm. So people can change over time. That's something that I hate with today's culture is like, the cancel culture and like things that have happened 20 years ago. Yes, I understand if it's something very drastic as far as being like a very bad call out racist or more so the actions, but like the things with like, blackface and people. As far as like blackface, it's a controversial topic. Yeah. But I don't think something as like, yes, it is racist. Back then it wasn't racist. I mean, you could say the same thing for slavery as well. Right. But blackface wasn't hurting anybody. And a lot of times it was done in a lighthearted manner. It wasn't towards like aggression. I think intent is something that people need to understand more so than anything else and just casting some sort of like blame because of that.
Yeah. It's true. It's and that's even the thing. It's hard, like, especially being, like a white woman with the whole, racial issues we have coming up now and the whole Black Lives Matter. I do understand. I understand both sides. I really do, because I've been on both sides. I've been on my side of being like, well, most of the people I know aren't racist. Like I'm not racist. I've never viewed someone that way. But at the same time, like I've made jokes, but again, like to me, I'm like intention, like, me as a person, like, my intent, I would never actually like do something harmful to somebody. But then on the other end, like it's hard. It was harder for me to actually have the viewpoint that I have now on Black Lives Matter, because it is so hard to put yourself in other people's positions and experiences and truly try to like understand them and empathize with that and take them on as your own. That's so much harder to do. But after doing it now, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, even if me and you aren't meaning to be intentionally harmful to somebody, we still don't get to decide if that harms somebody or not. Like I could make a slander, towards you. And I'm like, oh, I'm just being playful. But like that could trigger you. Like that could bring up some trauma for you. So even if my intention wasn't hurtful, it could still hurt you. So we just need to be more compassionate and like empathetic and understanding to try and have these really difficult conversations without being so stuck in our egos of like, I need to be right and you need to be wrong. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, it's funny, like there's truth in all of what we think. Like none of us see the world the way it is. We all see the world through our own lenses, from our own upbringing, from our own life experiences, from our own way we've been taught to view the world. And it's not right or wrong. We just all have coming from a different place. So if we all took more time to sit and just try and understand one another, it would be a lot better of a world that we live in.
We need more podcasts.
We need more podcasts. Exactly.
A few months ago, I had Stretch Sanders on here. He's the one that led the peaceful protest, 6,000 people. Yeah. And one of his main focal points was talking about racism, but he was saying that it's more so, he also said like the majority of people I know aren't inherently racist, but there is a ton of racism by ignorance. And it's exactly speaking on the exact tone that you were talking about, is like, you're not intentionally trying to harm someone, but your intentional acts are going to have some repercussions to somebody's mental health more so than anything. And sometimes that also can be taken out of context, because some people have much tougher skin and some people are very emotionally fragile. So then you're like, fuck, like I said this to one person and they didn't say, and it was okay. And
I said to somebody else and it's not, and it's really confusing. And there is this like white guilt, honestly. And even so, I even say, I'm like, when I talk to people about, like the whole Black Lives Matter stuff, I'm like, even more importantly than just like, maybe we don't understand, because like, I think we are getting better as a society. I think we are getting less and less racist. I'm like, but you have to understand it's our systems that are racist. It's our policing system. It's our prison system. It's our education system. It's our financial systems. It's our systems that have been set up this way that we need to deconstruct and kind of put back together and question. So for me, I'm like, it's our institutions that are really the problem right now that are really keeping this alive more so than it even is people. But, you know, white people hear Black Lives Matter and it's like they automatically get defensive, like, I'm not a racist. And like, it's not about you. Yeah.
It's the bigger picture.
Yeah. So
yeah, gotta tear it apart. That's like with defund the police. People look at it as literally defunding the entire police, but it's not that. It's more so they should have marketed it as.
I'd say them like it's such bad marketing.
They should have said like reappropriate some funds or something like that.
Which doesn't sound
right.
It doesn't sound as, you know what I mean? It's like
reappropriate funds.
Reappropriate funds. It just doesn't have the same ring, you know, as defund the police. I mean, I get it. That's like catchy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the marketing of that is really bad because then people are like, oh, you think police are evil? And like, oh, police are bad. I'm like, no, dude. It's like, you know, maybe instead of like putting extra police in like Black and like, you know, brown communities, maybe instead we can invest into their education system and like give them more mental health resources and once again, go back into like what Bernie Sanders supports and like more robust social systems so that people don't fall into crime and gangs and whatever else they need to do to survive. So
yeah, we need to optimize a lot of the different nonprofits and social systems. I've had quite a few nonprofit founders on here, and a lot of time they talk about. A lot of time they've been talking about how the government is just so bad at using funds that they just so wasteful.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I had a woman on here. Her name is Meredith. She's the founder of Carry Dot. It's like a homeless outreach agency.
Okay.
And the government, our government, the Las Vegas's government, they spent she said like $1 million on a homeless tent that they put in the downtown area. I don't remember if you saw when they did that.
I don't think so.
It was like a homeless tent right when coronavirus started. There was like a big tent and they had like the areas paved off for different homeless people to stay in a concrete slab or whatever.
Yeah.
It was $1 million and it only housed 17 people total. Yeah. So it's like, she's like, they're so wasteful at spending money. Yeah. If we had some sort of way to get more people in there, and she advocated actually for a merger of private and public funds because as we know, capitalists are really good at optimizing funds.
And here's my thing is like people think like, oh, she's like this socialist. I'm like, listen, I get it. The government can be really wasteful. It's not efficient. Capitalists are efficient because it's about making money. Government is not efficient with their money. I'm like, I feel like we need like a merging of these two worlds. And like, I get that. I'm not sitting here trying to say that the government is fucking perfect and amazing. They're not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what she advocated for is like, we need more mergers so that you can have the abundance of funds and the optimization of the product or the mission that they're trying to do.
Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, it's tough. We'll see. It goes back to, you know, the stimulus package and something else I wanted to touch on regarding finance. And this also ties into systemic racism is like the printing of money is one of the largest systemically racist actions that happens because it severs the middle class, right? Like for example, it's happened in 2008 and then exacerbated in today's age. And they might have printed money beforehand, but you know, that was before I was born. So I'm not really too knowledgeable on that situation.
Right. We're too young for this.
But what happens when you print money is the quote unquote inflation. But the first thing that happens is the decreasing of purchasing power. And so your dollar doesn't go as far. And when you print more money, what rises with that is assets. So things like stocks, bonds, you know, commodities, gold, silver, whatever.
Yep.
Who owns all of these assets? It's usually the upper 50, 25%. And then at the top, the richest people become even more richer. Like they said I think it was the top 10 or top 20 billionaires increased their wealth by $800 billion since over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Elon Musk. I love Elon Musk. And, you know, he's not I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's actually a very good person. But
I think a lot of billionaires are good people.
His wealth increased by 4x because of the inflation. And, that's not anything of his wrongdoing. That's just the faulty monetary system that we have.
Yep.
And the people who are on the bottom 50% are living paycheck to paycheck. So they're getting double affected where their money isn't going as far. And then the people at the top are increasing. So therefore it's like severing the middle class and creating so much more poverty behind it. So we have to fix this system somehow.
I know. Yeah. And it's hard even people understand, like, okay, well, they're like, they get mad at me again too. They're like, oh, socialism. I'm like, well, listen, I feel like I'm even more of a capitalist than you are, because it's not helpful that we have all this money in the hands of a few people. I'm like, that are just hoarding this money. I'm like, that would actually be way better spent giving it to poor people that need goods, that just need groceries, that just need a car, that just need gas, that need repairs on their home, like just want an apartment. Like, we want money flowing. That's good for capitalism. That's good for the economy. It's not good for the economy if we have all these massive sums of wealth in the hands of these few people, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos. Like, that's not beneficial, actually, even for what you even say you support. So you should want to give money more to lower class. Like, the middle class is shrinking. Like, why are we supporting a system that is clearly rigged in the wrong direction and it doesn't need to be?
So were you a supporter of Bernie Sanders? I think it was like a 52% wealth tax. I think it was anything over, if I believe correctly, it was anything over $10 million is taxed at a large rate. So
it's interesting. So yeah, I think it was if you made annually over $10 million for your income. And I even think that's income. So we even know the funny thing is, it's like, that doesn't even really, we're still going to miss out on so much money here, because most capitalists aren't even making their money from income. They're making their money from their assets. They're making their money from their dividends, from their stocks, from,
capital gains.
Yeah, exactly. They're not even making their money from income. So it's interesting. It's like, okay, that's a good idea in theory, but is that really going to do like what we need it to do? But yeah, I mean, I do support a wealth tax, because, and here's my thing, like, oh, well, like, you just want to, this is the whole conservative mindset. You just want to take money from all these people that worked really hard for what they have and give it to all these people that don't work hard. I'm like, here's the way I look at it. Again, we live in a society, right? We all need each other, right? I can't go to a restaurant and eat if I don't have a server. Okay. I can't, go and have my car fixed if there's not a guy there to repair my car. I can't drive to school if someone doesn't pave my roads. Like, we are social creatures. We need one another to survive. You were blessed enough to grow up in a society that gave you the opportunity to amass the serious amounts of wealth that you have. I don't think it's asking a lot that maybe you can have one less yacht so that some people can put food on their table. I don't think that's a crazy ask. I think you should want to give back to the society that allowed you the opportunity to become what you've become. And it's sad to me that, a lot of people don't see it that way, but.
Yeah, it's a byproduct of capitalism, is consumerism, and people become obsessed by it. And it's something that we see actually in our night jobs, is that a lot of these capitalist people come in and they spend large sums of money, sometimes up into six figures, just on
champagne,
overly priced products,
bottles,
overly priced.
I know, and I'm like, there's a homeless person outside right now that just wants like a cheeseburger, and you just dropped $60,000 on a light show and like a 6 liter of champagne.
Yeah. It's so crazy to think of all the time, where I'm like, where do all of these people come from into the nightclub with all of this excessive amount of capital? And I'm not bashing them, because this is what's given us our job. But when you think of it from an outside perspective, it's just like, it's such a ludicrous proposition, because at the end of the day, what are you gaining from these sales? The companies and the workers, we're gaining money from it.
Yeah.
The person who's in the club, they're gaining, social status for the night, or maybe a significant other for the night, whatever.
Yeah, they get to show off how successful they are.
Yeah, it's a stroke of ego is what it comes down.
It's all ego.
Yeah, it's what it comes down to. And it's just emphasized through this materialistic society that like the more money you have, the more power you have, which therefore then you can showboat what you need to, and you can flex and, you know, make it rain and literally throw money on the ground.
Yeah.
Like how many times do you see people come in and throw thousands of dollars?
Have you ever been to Drais? That's where half of my money came from. I can't tell you how many times I would literally go into Wells Fargo with ones, like a stack like this, and I go up to the teller and I'm like, I promise I'm not a stripper. And she's looking at me and there's like confetti on these ones. She's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, you don't want to know where those ones have been.
That's so funny. Yeah, Drais is like that. Yeah, Drais has a lot of the hip. It's all Drais is like mostly hip hop and live shows for the most part. I think. Do they even have DJs anymore at the night?
We just have DJ Franzen, which is like our house DJ. So pretty much we would have him as like the opener at the beginning of the night or on like slow winter nights. But yeah, otherwise it was all like live hip hop, rap, R&B artists.
Yeah.
And yeah, people are just like, I'd have my table and they would, you know, come and wouldn't even have tipped me yet. And they're like, can I change these $100 bills into one so I can throw into the air? I'm like, do you want to like give me one of these $100 bills first? Because I'm like doing all this stuff for you. Like,
yeah, it's an interesting crowd. I wasn't a big fan of it just because I'm not a big hip hop person, but I have a lot of friends who go there all the time, and
it's a totally different environment than most of the clubs in Vegas. If you're not trying to do the stereotypical EDM experience, I would recommend going to Drais. It's a little rowdy though, so prepare for that. Yeah.
And you worked at the Dayclub too, right?
Yeah, I did Dayclub as well. Yeah, that's a little bit more of like a mixed crowd, I'd say we get at. But actually, they were starting to do like more hip hop and rap at the Beach Club too. So I think they're probably in those days getting a little bit more of our crowd than, you know, when we were having like Adventure Club.
Yeah.
So that
makes sense. Which venue did you, or which day or night shift did you prefer?
So I won't lie to you. I love, there's something about Beach Club. I love working Beach Club. I love the environment of it. There's just something about working outside during the day at a pool party. I don't know. It doesn't even feel like a real job. So I liked Beach Club better, but this isn't my career path and it's not what I'm doing, you know, for what I want to do. I'm literally just doing it for the money. Mm-hmm. So I chose to go back to Nightclub because that's where the money is at Drais. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting because I know a lot of other places it's opposite, where there's actually more money
at the Beach Club.
At the beach clubs, but the nightclub is union, so it's like it's a stable job where you don't have to reapply, and going through auditions I know is tough.
Yeah, that's the other thing is you have that job security. So unless you get fired, because at Drais we weren't union, but you know you're in. So unless you get fired from whatever reason, you have your job. Beach Club, there's no guarantee. Like you get too old.
You get to say bye.
Yeah, they get sick of you. There's this fresh, hot, new 21-year-old, and like, okay, that's it. Goodbye. Thank you.
How many times did you have to go through auditions?
Wow, I've done so many. So I think the first year I did auditions. I didn't even get hired anywhere. Dude, auditions are like a whole nother. Like that's a brutal. That's not for like the faint of heart. like, auditions are, gosh, yeah. You think you have really good self-esteem and self-confidence. You go to auditions, takes you down like a few levels. You really gotta like go home and do some like self-work and self-care after that. But I don't know. I've probably put in myself through at least 3-4 different audition seasons. I actually was so happy I didn't do it this last year. I was like, you know what? I've got Drais. I'm set. I don't need to go and put myself through that.
It's a struggle, dude. You usually start training around October, September. It's like a 90-day, just like rough and tough in the gym, dieting, hardcore. Yeah.
You know what I will say? At least the one thing the industry gave to me was like I got into fitness and like health because of wanting to get into the industry, and now that's just become like a staple part of my life that I just do for me because it's good for me and because I enjoy it. So at least, if anything, like besides obviously the easy money that I got from the industry, at least I have that to take away from it, because I definitely wasn't getting into like fitness and working out because I was like, yeah, I just really want to do this to myself. I got into it because I was like, I really want to make a lot of easy money. So, and then in turn, I just ended up getting, you know, a really good life habit under my belt in my early 20s. So I guess that's something to be grateful for.
Yeah, beforehand, you're like carbs with every meal.
Yeah, before I'm like eating Del Taco and like McDonald's. Like, you know, I'm a college student. I'm like making top ramen in my dorm room.
Roberto's at 4 a.m. after a party.
Dude, yeah, the freshman 15 was really real for me. It was so real. And then I was like, oh, I like want to like be in the industry. I gotta get my shit together. So yeah, that's when I started. I was like, okay, let's cut out soda and let's, you know, not go out to eat every single day.
It's crazy that once you become healthy, you realize like how much of a detriment like not eating healthy is. Fast food, processed foods, and just not even the macronutrients, just like the different ingredients and chemicals that are used in American products opens your eyes, because it's not legal in a lot of European countries.
Again, we just suck on so many nuts. There's just so many things.
Deregulation, right?
Yeah, see? That's when they're like, free markets. I'm like, they're putting sawdust in your food. Because it's cheaper than what they're supposed to put in there.
Have you seen that documentary on Netflix called Rotten, where they like dissect the different the different food industries, and like they talk about how like the majority of the honey isn't real. It's like used with like different substances and
all these like toxic
fillers.
chemicals. Yeah, I know, it's so bad.
Back into the politics.
Dude, it's so sad how everything, and that's even why I'm like, I have my degree in psych. Like, I want to be a therapist. Like, that's what I want to end up doing. And then I get I've gotten so interested in politics because it relates to everything. Like, I wanted to help people, you know, on a one-by-one basis, like on a smaller scale, but at least I was still helping people. Then I was like, well, crap, do I go into politics because I could help people on a larger scale? And because it just touches everything? But yeah, it does. It always comes back to politics.
I think you have the charisma to do it.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. I mean, if I think auditions are rough on your self-esteem and ego, just imagine what a life in politics is
going
like.
through the election. Can you imagine that effect that it has?
Like the death threats to your family, and like it's just so crazy.
Politics weighs on you. Have you ever seen the before and after pictures of presidents, like when they get into office and after?
I've seen the one of Obama, and it's like, oh my
it's bad.
goodness.
And then you look at Trump, and he looks exactly the same.
Now it's because he already had no soul. It's already like dead behind the eyes. Like, it doesn't faze me.
Yeah, it's so funny. It shows that like he just like nothing phases him. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But all the other ones, I think the Bill Clinton one looked really bad when he got out. I was like, wow. And now he looks like a skeleton. Jesus.
Right? I really do. I think it's, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd want to be president of the United States. And then I really think about like the intricacies and all of the stress of that job. And I'm like, no. And then I watched a few episodes of Designated Survivor, and I was like, I really don't think I want this job.
I love that show.
I was like, what was I thinking? That seems horrible.
And you don't get paid shit for it, which they make money in the back end. Like I see Obama has like book deals and different things like
but again,
that.
That's why I agree with Andrew Yang. He's like, I think we should give politicians a raise.
Yes, I think so too.
And then you hear most people and they're like, oh, and it's like, yeah, because they're getting money from other ways. Maybe if they actually get money from their jobs, then they're not going to be pulled by special interests, and they'll actually like help you and not, the tobacco company.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I had this wild thought. Actually, I had this exact wild thought a while ago, and I was like, what if we just made every senator job $1 million flat? Like easy there.
Yeah. I think Andrew Yang wanted it to be like $2 million for
because
president.
I can guarantee you the competition for the race would be much more fierce, much more people would want to be involved in it. And then you can also get the money of politics out of it because, or it could greatly accelerate it based off of exploitation of how humans are. But you would hope, and in this context, we're going to hope that...
In theory.
In theory.
Everything seems so much better in theory than in actuality, huh?
If you raised it, and I'm still iffy on term limits. I don't really know for certain if there should be. I know a lot of people are for term limits. Mm-hmm. the main idea behind no term limits is that like it advocates for more negotiation, because you're like, fuck, I'm gonna have to work with Bernie Sanders for 30 years. Like, I'm gonna have to get on his good side at some point, or we're gonna eventually have to like come to some sort of agreement because we were gonna be around each other for 30 years.
Well, maybe. I mean, you never know if someone's gonna get reelected. I mean, I guess you can kind of, but if you have a finite amount of years in office, then you're probably just gonna come in and try to raise hell as much as possible, and kind of, if you haven't, you know that you're going to exit, so you might start working on your whatever is going to succeed that job. And you're going to start working on it while you're in office. Right. Whereas you're just going to start to pass things that'll benefit whatever field you're trying to go into. Yeah. You know, it's hard. It's like everything. I think the one benefit maybe of term limits is that right now our Congress is not representative of American population, which I think is a problem, right? So we don't have enough women in Congress. We don't have enough minorities in Congress. The average age of a senator is significantly older than the average age of, of American citizen. And it's just, that's why I feel like almost stuck in like the past, because we have all these old people in our Congress and in our government that don't represent like our actual thoughts, beliefs, and ideologies. So in that sense, I think it could be good, because get the hell out, Nancy Pelosi. Like, what are you doing?
She's 80.
Like,
Isn't
retire.
that crazy?
Like, stay at home and eat your $18 ice cream. Like, we don't need you. Like, fix your homeless problem in your city while you live in your mansion. Like, I'm just so upset.
It's so bad. We've lived through, and now we're to the point where the baby boomers who are in office still blame millennials for everything. And it's like,
you did this.
Yeah. And
what do you mean? You've been in power this whole time.
You've been in power, and also we're into our 30s now.
And you won't give it up. Like, let it go. Like, it's time for you to retire.
It's time for you to retire. It's time for everyone to start blaming the Zoomers for everything now. Can we get this next rotation? Can we get this next rotation on?
Exactly. Everything is the Zoomers' fault, okay? They're just playing video games all day. I don't know.
Video games, TikTok. Twitch is becoming really popular. I've had some friends go into the Twitch.
You want to know something? I've done 2 Twitch streams. That's kind of another route I was going to try and go.
Really? Do you play video games?
I've been playing Animal Crossing, and actually, so this is so nerdy. This is going to really, I can't believe I'm going to say this. So back when I was a kid, there was this online Disney game called Toontown, that I played. And I guess the fans made a rewrite of it. So I've kind of been dabbling back into this game. I literally play it as a child because it's like nostalgic for me. So I've been playing that, and actually, wow, and I'm really going to sound like I'm really into this stuff. I'm a nerd, but I just watched a trailer yesterday for this new Harry Potter game that's about to come out in 2021. So maybe I should just keep on this Twitch stream thing. But yeah, I bought a good webcam for it and everything. I got a new computer for it, so...
I told you, it's the wave. I had a coworker who came onto the show, and she just hit 10,000 followers. She's a verified person now. She does singing and like live looping and stuff like that. Yeah. But you can blow up like pretty quickly. Yeah, you can. It's like anything. If you're consistent. It's hard. It's hard to be consistent.
It's even with my blog. I'm like, okay, Angel, be consistent. Like, you really got to work on your procrastination problems.
You still writing your blog?
I'm actually just started getting back into it. I literally have been preparing for this post. It's on grief, actually.
What is grief?
Grief? Oh, like grief.
I was thinking like a platform, but I guess I could also be a platform.
So my blog is so it's called Mindful of Thoughts. It's supposed to be like self-help, improvement related. So far I've only posted 2 things on there. I've posted one about fitness, like getting into fitness. I posted another one that was pretty much like tips on like traveling, but the one I'm working on now is on grief, which I feel like is really important in this year because it's just like grief of everything. You know what I mean? So many people lost their jobs, their routines, normalcy, loved ones, like whatever it is. And especially in our society, I think not a lot of us are good at coping with our pain, with our grief, with our problems. So that was kind of like my platform where I was wanting to get out, my background in psychology and self-help in the related field. So
that's awesome. When was your first post?
Oh, when was my first post? Maybe a few months ago.
Oh, okay. So this is real recent.
Yeah,
Real
this
recent.
isn't something that I've, been doing long term, but trying to get into it. But yeah, I have a website. It's legit.
What's the website?
You can subscribe.
Plug it.
So it's mindfulofthoughts.com, but for full, mindful, Full. So it's like a play on words.
Full.
Mindful of thoughts, but mindful of thoughts.
I like that.
Yeah. I wanted to do Guardian Angel, but of course that domain was taken, and I wasn't trying to pay.
Probably way too expensive
I wasn't
now.
trying to pay like thousands of dollars for it.
Dude, domain sales are crazy.
Isn't that nuts? I was like, wow, who knew? This is how I can make money. I could just be an asshole and buy all these domain names and then be like, pay me for me getting this before you.
I literally just listened to a podcast a few days ago where the founder of this company called MicroStrategy, he bought the domain voice.com 20 years ago, and he just sold it a year ago for $30 million.
Yeah.
Just the domain.
Yeah. Like, okay, you bought that for what, a few $100s, and you just made millions of dollars on it? Okay. Yeah.
Capitalism.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's interesting. So,
but see, there goes the capitalism. Like, they worked really hard for the money. Oh, he worked really hard for that $32 million sale.
That subscription fee is it's tough.
Yeah.
The way it weighs on your mental health.
Right. Yeah. How hard you worked for that.
But going back to the blog, though, I'm interested because I think blogging is something that was first like interwebbed into the internet or interwoven, so to speak. And, things when we were growing up, MySpace had a blog, Zynga was popular, Tumblr was popular for a long time.
Yeah.
There's like this need to express yourself through words. And, this precedes even the internet, as, books have been around for centuries or millennia.
Right.
So forth. But the way that we communicate through blogs, it's like this, like, it's a very intimate, very emotional, very like you're trying to like teach or like spread awareness onto something.
Exactly. Or like, even if you can just say one thing that can resonate with one person or impact their life in a positive way. And I feel like that's what it's all about, people connecting and helping other people. Being impactful. Yeah. Making a difference. Hey. So
where do you think that's inspired from?
Wow.
Getting deep. We're getting deep. I hope you're ready.
We are getting deep. I was blessed enough. I grew up with an amazing family with amazing grandparents that raised me. But I went through a lot of like bullying and trauma in high school, and a lot of like loss of a lot of people really important to me at the same point in my life. It's interesting. Like, there's something about decades with me, because this was all in 2010, and now 2020 being what 2020 is, I'm like, decades are really just like those years for me that really want to put me through some stuff. But like, luckily I have the mindset and awareness that I do to realize that it's all like for the better, and I'm going to come out stronger from it. But I went through a lot of bullying and a lot of difficult things my junior year of high school. And it made me take a look at myself and be like, okay, I can, blame everything on everybody else, right? And I can play this victim mindset. I'm like, or I can take some accountability and look in the mirror and ask, what can I change about myself so that I'm never in this position again? How can I better improve my life and who I am as an individual? And that's really where my whole beginning of self-help and self-improvement started. And ever since I started, I just haven't really stopped. And so then that inspired me to be like, okay, well, I'm going to get into psychology because this is what I'm interested in. This is what I'm passionate about. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be a therapist because I'm going to help other people improve their lives and make better decisions and, live happy lives. So yeah, I feel like it all kind of stemmed from my own traumas, really. It's
early day traumas, early day struggles. That's what a lot of our foundations are built upon.
Right.
And sometimes we don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. That's what you see through like how kids turn out is because of how their parents, had not even just treated them, but how they acted around them. And you take these like different skills and different bad habits, different thoughts and opinions from your parents. Yeah. And you're like, wait, why do I think like this?
Yeah. Why does this trigger me? Why do I react this way towards these things? And it's so interesting. Like, I wished, obviously, like me having this kind of mindset, I'm like, I really hope people take this quarantine and this time to themselves to really like dig within themselves and question like who they are and what they want out of life and why they do the things that they do and why they think the things that they think. You know, do I think a lot of people actually like sat down and did that, or they just like scrolled through their their social media feeds and like then like binge watch Netflix? Probably more so that one, but if I can be like that voice out there of reason to try and move society in this other direction, then yeah, I'm all for it.
So noble. It's honorable.
Oh, thank you. See, that's what I wanted like if I did a podcast or whatever, I wanted all kinds of correlate together into that same kind of self-help realm.
Self-help, it's something that I kind of associated myself with after college, which is kind of awkward because, you know, after you graduate college, you're like, you think that you have your life planned ahead of you.
That's just what society tells you.
Yeah, it's what they tell you. And then you graduate and you're like, what now?
You're like,
Holy
really
shit.
just began.
Yeah, just began, literally. So if you see the whiteboard calendar over there, see at the top it says September 5.
Yeah.
And not 2020.
Yeah.
Because that's 5 years after college. So I'm in my 5th year.
I'm 5 years out of college too.
Hey, so we're in year 5. I've actually
year 5.
I started that because I graduated winter of 2015.
Wow.
So yeah, I was like, all right, now this is my life. This is when I'm taking control, and now I'm making decisions. I'm not doing what society tells me to do anymore.
Yeah, that's good.
And
you shouldn't.
Yeah, so now we're year 5, and just being reborn again. So, but yeah, it's just like a small note that when I wake up every day, I'm like, all right, like, you know, we still lived our lives throughout school and adulthood and all these different things, but it was kind of predetermined because that's what we were supposed to do. I went to college because my parents didn't go to college. So I was like, oh, I'm proving something that I can go to college for the family. Yeah,
it was the same thing for me. Well, and it was kind of just ingrained in me. Like I didn't even really have a choice. Like it wasn't like my parents were like, yeah, you know, what do you want to do when you graduate high school? It was like, you're going to college. And I was like, I'm going to college. You know, because you just did what your parents told you to do. And I was like, okay, like, this is what I got to do to, like, that's what you're told. This is what you have to do to be successful. This is what you have to do, you know, to get by. Like, this is what you have to do for opportunities. And I'm like, okay. So it wasn't even like, I don't even feel like that was a decision I made. I feel like my parents made that decision for me.
They put it on you.
Yeah, they put it on me. They put it on me, but they didn't pay for it. It's weird. It's weird. It's really strange. But whatever.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to major in college. I always make this joke that I decided to study myself within kinesiology because I was like, all right, I guess this is the best opportunity to understand like biological processes because I don't know. It's like I always felt like business you could kind of learn on your own. Yeah. Communication seemed
you really can learn anything on your own.
Yeah, now you can see that.
Tell them that.
Right? Take online classes. But now they're going to charge more.
Yeah, you know. Well, I guess it is kind of, that's the only negative. You can't really teach yourself pretty much anything that you can learn in school. Obviously, you have to have a lot of self-discipline because there's no one like holding you accountable and no one grading you. But I guess the only other problem is, you know, a lot of places want a degree now in order to hire you for a lot of positions. So that's the only, place, like, that's the only hoop where they kind of get you.
Although some of the tech companies, though, they say that it doesn't matter anymore for the tech companies because I think they realize that technology is advancing at such a rapid rate. Yeah. Your degree is pretty much obsolete by the time that you get there and into some sort of position that's going to make a change.
Everything you learned doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Is that crazy?
It doesn't matter anymore. So you should just keep learning.
We just keep accelerating faster and faster and faster. The news cycle just gets faster and faster and faster. It's like we have no idea. All you can do is just try to understand. Although I do think that humans weren't meant to process the entire world issues at one time.
No, we weren't. We definitely weren't. We weren't meant to see the whole Matrix. I think we might
see the Matrix, the glitching, and everything.
Yeah, I think
it's like when I go back to the thing of freedom of speech, you know, with Thomas Jefferson, our founding fathers. It's like I think their freedom of speech, they meant like you can say anything where a max crowd of maybe 20 or 30 people would gather around you.
Right.
But now when you take freedom of speech to a platform where the entire world can see what you're saying, I don't think that's what they meant. I don't think they could even envision that.
They couldn't have even preconceived that. You know, there's no way. Or that's even, it's like the same thing with guns, right? They're like, everyone has right to a gun. I'm like, they weren't imagining like AR-15s. Like, they had no idea what was coming. Like, this is so, That's why this is a living and breathing document, you guys. I didn't know what our future was going to be like.
Yeah, it's time.
You put one of them here in 2020, they'd be like, what is going on?
Yeah, you know, it's probably going to take that idea and even go 20 years into the future, and it's probably going to be like, no more smartphones. Everything is going to be through some sort of like...
Have you watched, what is it? Is it Black
Mirror?
Black Mirror.
Oh,
yeah.
Some of those things have actually came true already. Like the robot dog is real. The surveillance bees is a real thing. The social credit score China does.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
Yeah,
that should not be a thing.
I read an article that Visa was approached by the government actually as far as gathering credit scores and different things to maybe go in on this social credit score thing down the road.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. All these different ways to control people. I think that's kind of...
don't like it.
Yeah, I think that's the fear towards socialism, is that they think it's going to be the government control because Marxism was like said that socialism was just a bridge to communism. Although democratic socialism is completely different.
Yeah, it's not because even the same thing.
When Marx was around, and then was it the 1850s or something like that? Like America was just going through a civil war, or it just finished one, or was about to.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is, like, if you actually really dig deep into it, like, they call like China a communist country. They call these like authoritarian dictatorships communism, and really, there's never been a true communistic country actually ever on our planet. So it's just interesting. They're like, look at Venezuela. Oh my God, I hate that.
Yeah.
Anytime.
I was refraining from bringing it up.
Anytime someone found out I was a Bernie bro, they're like, look at Venezuela. I'm like, you don't even know what happened in Venezuela. I'm like, can you please tell me what led to the downfall of Venezuela? Socialism. Oh, but how? Because Tucker Carlson told me. I'm like, no.
Hyperinflation is one of them, but I don't even know for certain either. And you also look at China, they call it a free economic zone, but basically it's capitalist zones.
No, it is. Yeah, I'm like, they're not a communist country at all. I'm like, they
have communist properties for sure, definitely. But they have areas where they take over certain aspects. Whereas like, do you know what Alibaba is?
That sounds familiar.
It's like the Amazon of China. It was created by a guy named Jack Ma.
Okay.
He created Alibaba on his own because, China's so communist that you can't go and create your own thing, quote unquote, making a joke. For those that are listening. He created this multi-billion-dollar Amazon competitor for China. Okay. And I think it was a year or two ago, China was like, okay, you've done a great service to your country. We're now operating this. And they basically just took it over, and now it's run by the state.
Yeah, see, that's not what Bernie Sanders supports at all.
Yeah, see, that's what people are afraid of because it's like, too much authoritarianism.
It's people like just don't understand. They don't understand what he even really represents or what he wants, and then like the media just like tries to paint these broad strokes of like, this is what he wants. Like, that's not even it at all. But like people just take things at face value, and they don't take the time to like research and look into it. Like, okay, what does Bernie Sanders actually really support? Like, what is his platform in actuality? They just believe what talking heads on the media tell them because that's easier than,
It's what Facebook told me.
Reading.
It's what Tucker Carlson told me.
Yeah, exactly. It's what fucking Sean Hannity told me. So it's true.
And those guys don't even believe it.
No,
believe it themselves.
They get paid to say that.
Going back to what we were talking about, what was that? Almost an hour and a half ago.
We've been here for a while, haven't we?
An hour, 37 minutes. But
so you have the timer.
I have the timer. Yeah, I have the all seeing
look,
eyes.
we have a lot we could talk about.
And that's what I'm saying. The longest I've gone is 2.5 hours so far. That was with
really?
my big bro Alon. Yeah, we got to talk about commercial real estate and Bitcoin for a long time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
It was a fun one. It's a fun one, which I I bet you my audience is probably like, wow, he has not touched on Bitcoin yet at this point. Like, very surprised. I bring it up all the fucking time.
Right? That's like me with politics. Like, in the car says, wow, she hasn't brought up politics yet. Good for her. Wow, she's feeling weird today.
Yeah.
Like, is she sick?
trying to spare everybody.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Going back to when we were talking about researching different public figures,
Yeah.
I watched Tucker Carlson go on Dave Rubin. I watched him go on the Ben Shapiro show, and I forget there was another one. And he flat out said, he's like, look, what I say on Fox is because I'm paid to say this. He's like, he's like, I'm honestly not even a big fan of Trump. Like, he actually, and he's like a big supporter on the show, you know, obviously, but he's like, a lot of his ideals don't resonate with me. And he's like, look, I understand that I grew up in a white privileged family. He was from like some rich area in California, and then he went to school in some rich white area. He's like, I understand these things, you know, precede me, but I'm only saying what they tell me to say. And he's like, I don't really have that much power. That's just like, that's my day job.
Yeah. See, I guess for me, I just don't think I could ever do that because
Selling your soul.
Yeah, because my morals and values like don't have a cost to them. Yeah. I think that's where I'm like, okay, if I can somehow find a way to be monetarily successful and not have to shove my morals and values to the side, that's like an ideal situation for me. So, but usually that's hard. Actually, a lot of the time in our society, you kind of have to sell your soul or give up what you truly believe in
at some point.
But then you people don't realize this. Like, that's when you really start to lose yourself because you don't know it's true anymore. You keep putting on this facade. You kind of become what you do daily. So
lost in the fray.
Yeah.
As they say.
And I wonder why like they don't feel satisfied or happy. It's probably because you're not living out who you truly are as a person.
You're just a hollowed out person of what you used to be.
Yeah, you're just doing what you were told you needed to do by society to survive.
Yeah, money changes people. How many times have we seen in our own industry where after a year or two of working in the nightclub, you see people's personality completely flip because they start going out with customers, or they get rich friends, or they just like start enamoring
sugar daddy.
Sugar daddies. Hey, Vegas is the #1 city in the entire world.
Is it
for sugar daddy per woman capita? I think it was like,
are you serious?
It was like 1 in 22 when I read that.
That should not surprise me. What's like second? Beverly Hills? What's this? Orange County? What is like? Wow, we would be #1 for that.
Yeah, it's crazy. They even have a sugar daddy website now. I think it's called Sugar You or something like that.
I feel like there's always been a sugar daddy website. I actually know a girl from high school. I'm from a small town, okay? I'm from a small town in Wisconsin. And she literally got herself a sugar daddy. Immediately, out of high school, she moved to California. Been with this guy forever now. He's like a multimillionaire. There's like an elevator in their house. They now are married and have a baby together. I'm like, wow, you really like did it.
Yeah. Isn't it weird that the age disparity between relationships is just growing?
Dude, his first daughter literally looks older than her. I'm like, if I was her, I would feel so weird.
Isn't it?
You're like fucking my friend. Dad, why are you sleeping with my friend? That's weird. I don't know. Maybe it's because my parents are so young. Like I was a oops, like a uh-oh baby. So that's why my grandparents raised me. So my parents are like in their mid-40s right now.
Oh, wow.
So the thought of like marrying and dating a 50-year-old makes me want to throw up. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's just like the age disparity, it grows. You know, it's like when you're in middle school, you're like, oh my God, the 8th grader's dating a 7th grader. What? What? And then you get to high school and you're like, that senior is dating a freshman. What is going on?
Yeah.
And now that you're in the real world, you're like, oh, he's 35, she's 22. Like, makes sense.
I won't lie to you. That was still pretty weird for me when I first I remember I first got out while we were in college, and my girlfriend, she was like a hostess, and she started dating a manager, right? So she was, I don't know.
She wasn't 21, yeah.
Yeah, she was like 20, and he was 30, and I was like, you're dating a 30-year-old? And to me, it was so like weird.
So outlandish.
And now it's kind of, like more normal. Like I'm like, oh, okay.
You see it.
Whatever.
makes me wonder if it's been heightened because of the, the whole sugar daddy phase has become more accepting, and also just because it's harder for the younger generation
Us
to.
millennials are so poor. Just please
exactly.
pay for my stuff.
Yeah. Provide me a home.
Please help me get out of debt.
Provide me a home.
Pay for my credit cards.
Maybe that's one of the subtle reasons of why, the patriarchy exists.
Yeah, like maybe the patriarchy supports it. They're like, yeah, come here, little girl. You can't afford your shit. You can't get that college degree without daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably is.
I know. Trust me, I even I sometimes, because, the extremes of everything, sometimes I hate even identifying as a feminist because you know what the media does. They're like, oh, you're a feminist, so a guy holds a door open for you, and you're like, I can get it myself. And I'm like, okay, to me, that's not what, a feminist is, right? Like, obviously, support, equal women's rights to men's rights. But a lot of people even still deny. I'm like, we grew up in, a patriarchy. This isn't, debatable. Women literally couldn't even vote until that long ago. I think women got the right to vote after Black people got the right to vote, actually. I think so. Actually, we want to talk about, oppression and how we grew up in a patriarchal system. But I was even saying this the other day to somebody. I was like, why, if I marry you, right, Jake, why do I have to take your last name instead of you taking...
See, I always wondered that, too.
You taking my last name. It's because this is the society we grew up in. Women were, at one point, commodities, where it was like, oh, you marry my daughter, and now, our family will be honored into this, whatever. It was a societal way to leverage your way up. So we were almost bargained off, and that's even why families wanted males to carry on the family name, right? Because you give your women away and she doesn't carry on your name anymore. So it's funny, I'm just even that kind of asshole. I go on a first date with somebody and I'm like, how did you feel about if we get married and I don't take on your last name because I don't believe in buying into our patriarchal system? And then they're like, who the hell did I just take on? Wow, I didn't think that's what she was going to say.
The first time I ever saw that happen was, I remember my 5th grade teacher, his wife was also a teacher, but she kept her last name. But I always saw them together and they said that they were married. And I was like, wait. You don't have to take the last name? And he's like, no, I let her keep her last name because that's what she wanted.
Yeah. So even some men get offended by that. I've talked to some men about it and they're like, well, and I was like, well, why? I was like, why should I have to give up a part of my identity and assume some of your identity? Why is your identity more important than mine? Because that's what your parents have always done. It's because what our society does. Mm-hmm. And then I'm even the kind of person where, I'm at a point where I think if I get married, I'll probably hyphenate my last name. So I'll probably take on my husband's last name, but I'll also keep my last name, which even that bothers some people.
It's a negotiation.
Too. That even bothers some people too. They're like, you're going to hyphenate. And I was like, why do you feel like you need to control my last name?
I feel like it's just it's not even a big deal.
No, I'm like, you're arguing with the psych major right now. How do you think this is going to go over? Yeah,
Maybe that's more... If a woman takes a last name, maybe that's a cause for more jealousy because you're like, oh, she's kind of quote unquote my property, and when you see her talking to another man, you're like, that's mine. And you don't see as much as freedom. Whereas if you didn't have the last name, it's just she's her own person. She could go talk to whoever she wants. Yeah. I know at the end of the day that we're still together. And if something happens, then I guess we go our separate ways.
I guess where it gets stickier, where one guy was saying to me is they were like, well, then what are our kids' last names going to be then? They're all going to have hyphenated last names? And I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. That's a good thing to bring up. I'm like, I haven't thought that far down the road.
Your kids get hyphenated names and then they date someone who has hyphenated names.
And then they have 4 last names. It's Jake, Gallen, Rasmussen, Lopez. All these different.
Is that funny? Eventually, you just have so many hyphenated names that you just create your own last name based off the abbreviations.
You know what I even said? I was like, you know what? I think at that rate, I'm like, I'm not going to take it that far. I'm like, I think I just want to keep my last name for me. I'm like, I grew up in this patriarchal system. If they want to have your last name, I love you, fine. They can have your last name. It's whatever. I digress.
Do you think that it's gotten better for women in this sort of patriarchal system, and it's not all just doom as the media likes to make it out to be.
Yeah, well, even like with our racial issues too, I believe that society is moving in the right direction in general, of course. But I feel like it's with conversations like these. It's with like, wow, I never thought about that. Why does the woman take on the last name of the male? Or even let's even getting into why is it usually sugar daddies and not sugar mamas?
Can we make that a thing?
But and you really you have to kind of start to pick apart the pieces of society and really analyze them. And until you have conversations like these, a lot of people don't. They don't think deeply on these matters, and they don't talk about it. So many white people are like, well, white privilege doesn't exist because I don't see it. Well, of course you don't see it because you're white. You're not meant to see it. You don't see privilege. You only are aware of that if you don't have it. That's the point of a privilege. You have it. So you need to start looking from other angles and really analyzing. But yes, I do think it's getting better.
That's good.
It's definitely not gone, but it is moving in the right direction for sure.
I think it'll be, unfortunately, it's going to be decades or centuries before you can get rid of everything onto like a completely equal level. I think it's just like a human biology at the end of the day. It goes down to, when we're living in caves and when we're Neanderthals and somebody had to die because that was the food chain. That's how it existed. So
and it even is too, like, again, to get like really psych on you. It's like our amygdala too. It's like we are taught to fear change. So like even if change is good for us, like even if progress is change and that's better, we fight it and resist it because we've been taught this like change is bad. Like stick with what you know because you know how to handle that. You know how to deal with it. So our body and our even psyche sets us up for that. That's why we have fear. It's to keep us safe. It's survival mode, right? So it's, this battle truly of fighting your innate biological responses and your higher mind and consciousness being like, okay, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's different ways to view this. Maybe there's a better way of behaving.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
Fight or flight. At the end of the day.
Yeah. So
support that. Wow. An hour 50.
Right? I'm sweating.
Right? I think this will be a good transition to the end. This has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very open.
I agree.
I always ask 2 questions at the end of the day.
Okay.
Same ones. The first question is the year's 2030. What does the life of Angel Rasmussen look like?
Wow. That's those questions, huh? So ideally, I hope to have a platform in some way like this, some sort of audience that I speak to. I do hope I'm obviously like a licensed therapist and I have like a private practice and all those things, but I do also want to make an impact on a bigger scale than even helping people one-on-one. So I hope to have some sort of, whether it's a podcast, my blog, YouTube, any of those things. I hope I have a platform in which I have a good following and I'm helping people. Ideally married, but who knows things like that? And who knows things like that in life? I don't know if I'll live in Vegas. I'm kind of like a gypsy soul. As much as I love it here, I feel like there's so many other places I need to like live and experience and different cultures and ways of being. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I'll live here, but I hope to have a house. I hope to have a private practice and a platform. I'm just making people's lives better, honestly.
I respect that.
Yeah. I won't be a bottle server. 10 years from now.
If you are, I'm definitely pulling this clip up 10 years later. Blasting it all over.
Angel, look at how badly you failed from your dreams.
Blasting all over whatever social media platform is popular at the time.
Right. It won't even be any of these things. It'll be something completely different.
My guess is it's going to be either something VR, something augmented reality, or some sort of like...
Dude, we'll have like these like things we can like just put into our brain. I don't know. It's about to get
telepathy.
Weird. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
I'd be down for that.
Right.
Last question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
Wow. Las Vegas was my fresh start. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, with all my trauma and everything I dealt with like in my hometown, I moved here and I was like, this is like my new beginning. And it really was. It was kind of like a coming of the adult me. So it really has become home. I love it here.
This is your year one. That was your year one.
Yeah.
I respect that. How can everyone get connected with you?
Is this where I give my social media?
Yeah, or whatever you feel is appropriate.
Well, I already gave you guys like my blog. So it's www.mindfulofthougts, 2 L's from mindful.com. You can follow my blog. You can also get on my butt to keep me actually actively on that and posting to it. My Instagram is Angel Rass, Rass. Yeah. I guess if you want to look up Angel Rasmussen, Rasmussen on Facebook, I'm trying to be silent on there for a little while, but maybe I'll get back on and be a little crazy. Maybe near election time.
There's some insight and some entertainment mixed in there.
Yeah. If you want to watch me fight some people, not fight, I guess debate some people. Friendly fire on Facebook. You can follow me.
That's awesome. Well, Angel, this was an incredibly insightful conversation.
Yeah, I loved it.
I loved every second of this, and I thank you for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Special number 50. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, 50. I like that.
Great to catch up. Great to see you. And thank you guys for listening or viewing on YouTube. We'll catch you next time.